One.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I am Bill Maley, your Brighton Town Supervisor, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to tonight's Brighton Town Board meeting, February 14th, 2018. As always, when we meet, we value the ability of all of you to participate just as fully as we do with all of the supporting material that we have. If you are here in the room with us tonight, the agenda for tonight's meeting and all of the backup material for every action we're planning on taking is on the table in the rear of the room. If you are watching us on cable channel 12 or streaming from our webpage, you can get all of the same material from the town's webpage. It's posted there, and we welcome you to follow along with us in that. As always, we're going to start tonight with a pledge to the flag. I will ask Councilmember Wilt to lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I am going to ask that we observe a moment of silence following yet another school shooting today. Thank you. We don't know yet all of the details of this latest shooting that took place at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. We know there were quite a number of fatalities. But what we do know is that thoughts and prayers, although they are certainly well-intentioned, have not stopped the steady stream of school shootings in this country. Now, there's no proof that Albert Einstein ever really said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But I must say that, sadly, that expression seems to ring true here. Thoughts and prayers will not ever replace comprehensive solutions, comprehensive steps to reduce gun violence in our schools and in our communities. Now, our police department, under Chief Henderson's leadership, trains, and they have trained at facilities here in town for active shooter situations. And that training is vitally important. And I appreciate, Mark, the leadership you've taken in making sure that the JCC, MCC, and that both have had very active shooter training drills, and that you have worked with a number of other organizations in town. And that truly is vital. But tonight, in spite of that, and in spite of those thoughts and prayers, another community is grieving the loss of children, and that simply can no longer be acceptable. All I can say is doing the same thing over and over has not worked. It has not created a different answer, and it will not work to stop gun violence in our schools or in our communities. And it seems that the only people that it's working for are those with a vested interest in preventing real solutions to this national crisis. With that said, if there were to be an emergency here, you would hear the emergency alarm system. I would ask that you leave the room immediately, leave the building immediately, either through the door to my right marked with the exit sign, turn right, go down the stairs, out the rear entrance to Town Hall and away from the building. Or through the double doors at the rear of this building, through the lobby, out the main front door of Town Hall, down the steps, and again, away from the building. If we should experience technical difficulties during the live cable broadcast, for those of you that are watching us on cable channel 12, if you have trouble with the audio or the video, please contact Spectrum. Their number is 756-5000. If you're watching this live, 756-5000 to Spectrum for technical difficulties. We're going to go to the open forum as we always do in just a little bit. However, tonight I will be giving the State of the Town address, and I do appreciate those of you that have come here, particularly that you've come here on Valentine's Day or on Ash Wednesday for tonight's State of the Town address. I appreciate it very much. And I thank you for joining me in that State of the Town address this year. I can tell you that the state of Brighton is strong in the traditional measures, our finances, the quality of our services, public safety, property values are strong. But Brighton is also strong in a more intangible sense. We each share a connection of service and commitment to this community and with our neighbors. Tonight we'll talk about some of those connections that bring people in Brighton together in a time when strong forces seem to be at work elsewhere, tearing people apart. We will talk about how we can make those connections even stronger so that we can continue to make the town of Brighton as inclusive as it can be. We will talk about how we're continuing to focus on our core values of diversity, education, and sustainability, and how those three values make us strong as a community. We'll talk about our fiscal strength and the strength of the commitment of our town staff to serve the Brighton community every day. And when it comes to plowing and salting the streets, yes, believe me, I do mean every day. But I also want to focus on the special connections, both traditional and the unexpected and sometimes even extraordinary connections that make Brighton, Brighton, and that make Brighton the community that more and more people want to call their hometown every year. One of our strongest connections in Brighton, of course, is with our schools. The Brighton Central School District does much more than simply educate our children and our grandchildren. It holds many programs and events that connect the community to its educational mission. Just one example is the upcoming opioid community meeting at Brighton High School on March 12th, bringing together the town of Brighton and the Brighton Police Department, Monroe County and the County Health Department, the Brighton Central School District and the PTSA, all to focus attention on the crisis of opioid abuse and to identify measures to attack this problem. I appreciate School Board President Mark Kokonovich is here tonight, and I can't say enough about the work of Dr. Kevin McGowan. Dr. McGowan is leaving tomorrow with a group of students and community members to Israel. So we wish him well on a safe trip, but we greatly appreciate having you here, Mark. Brighton is made up of 5 school districts, and I greatly respect the educational excellence demonstrated not only in the Brighton Central School District, but also in the other 4 districts that serve the town, the Pittsford, Penfield, Rush Henrietta, and Wheatland Chili school districts. And in doing so, I want to particularly recognize and thank Dr. Ken Graham, who will be retiring at the end of the 2017-18 school year as superintendent of the Rush Henrietta School District. Dr. Graham has served as superintendent in Rush Henrietta since 1999. He's the longest-serving superintendent in Monroe County. Dr. Graham and the entire Rush Henrietta School Board and senior administration have consistently communicated with their partners in government. Every year they host a dinner early in the budget preparation season where they go over their budget and their plans for the next year with the supervisors and town boards of all three communities, of Brighton, of Rush, and Henrietta, that are served by the Rush Henrietta School District. On behalf of the entire town board, I want to thank Dr. Graham for your incredible service record. What you've done for the children in our three communities is extraordinary, and we wish you well on your retirement. Brighton is a community that places a priority on education at all levels, and we're also fortunate to be the home of many fine private and faith-based schools. I want to point out just one of those schools, Hillel School, which completed a major renovation of its facility this past summer. I had the privilege of joining the leadership, parents, teachers, and families of Hillel at a ribbon cutting near the start of the school year. And the transformation, not only of the physical space, but also in the way the space allows students to engage in activities, expanding their horizons in areas of STEM education, broadcasting, just to name a few. It is remarkable, the work they did over the course of just one summer. There are many other fine private schools and faith-based schools that call Brighton home. They educate children living in Brighton and throughout the community, connecting students of many backgrounds. Some of those schools include high schools like Our Lady of Mercy, McQuaid Jesuit, the Harley School, which of course is a leader in integrating sustainability into their educational curriculum. In addition, Destiny, Seton, Siena Academy, and the Westfall Academy, all providing educational opportunities to students. We also count 4 institutions of higher education in Brighton. Our schools at all levels connect the Brighton community and the broader community with the jobs of tomorrow and the diversity of America and the world and this community today. Brighton is home to the main campus of Monroe Community College and the MCC Applied Technology Center on West Henrietta Road. During these times when the pace of technology requires employers to train people in new skills, and people looking to advance themselves or who've lost their jobs must develop new skills to remain relevant in the workforce, the presence of MCC in our community, as well as the presence of SUNY Empire State College in their state-of-the-art LEED certified regional campus on Westfall Road, gives us a great leg up in providing employment skills. The University of Rochester has opened its new imaging facility on East River Road, adding to the Laser Lab, the Alumni Advancement Center, as well as U of R medical facilities and other facilities throughout Brighton. This new imaging building is the first building to be constructed as part of the university's long-range South Campus development plan. And I think it's important to note, as I have before, that although the University of Rochester is generally exempt as an educational university from paying property taxes, it does make significant amenity payments in lieu of taxes to the town of Brighton for the imaging building and for other Brighton properties, because the Brighton Town Board required the university to use the incentive zoning process in developing the institutional planned development zoning district for the South Campus. Over time, as the South Campus is built out, and that could be 30 years or more, those payments could exceed $1 million per year in current dollars, revenues that the town of Brighton would not receive but for the use of incentive zoning. Damon College from the Buffalo area has a campus near the Winton Road I-590 interchange, And while the main campus of RIT is located across Jefferson Road from the town of Brighton, RIT does own a significant amount of land north of Jefferson Road that could well be utilized in the future for startups spinning off from RIT. So we've talked about the educational connections. But last weekend I attended the Brighton Fire Department Awards dinner. The department recognized a number of its paid staff and fire volunteers, including 45-year volunteer service awards to Bob Lyons and Jay Jeffries. Jay is a former foreman here in the town of Brighton. In my remarks, I noted how the Brighton Fire Department had fostered connections of many kinds in the community, including connections with other public safety agencies and educating children and families about fire safety. Those connections can save a day when a major event occurs, or simply put a smile on a child's face at the annual fire department open house. I appreciate all of the service, and I'm pleased to thank Rick Garrett, who is here representing the fire department this evening. Thank you very much. Brighton Volunteer Ambulance recently broke ground on a new addition to their headquarters, the historic building, a Brighton brick building at the corner of Westfall and Winton Roads. The expertise and commitment of the BVA staff and volunteers are critical to saving lives for some and enhancing the quality of life for all of us. I already mentioned the role that the Brighton Police Department will play in the upcoming opioid conference at Brighton High School, but day in and day out, the Brighton Police Department engages the community, meets with neighborhoods and neighborhood associations, welcomes the community to its open house, and trains its personnel to better meet the law enforcement needs of a diverse community like Brighton. Through it all, the Brighton Police Department is always there, just a 911 call away when you need help the most. Thank you, Chief Mark Henderson, and thank you to every member of the department. You make up the finest law enforcement agency in the state. And I mentioned Brighton Volunteer Ambulance. I do want to welcome and thank Chief Dan McHugh, who's here this evening as well, and I do want to thank you, Dan, all of your officers, all your staff and volunteers. We look forward, having cut the, or turned the first shovel over on your new expansion, we look forward to cutting the ribbon when you're completed. Now, there are many other groups that foster important connections and aid within the Brighton community. Many of those groups partner with the town in their service activities, and in doing so, they also enhance our quality of life and build connections, not only within Brighton, but in some cases, connections that can extend around the world. In the past 2 weeks, I attended events here in Brighton that focused on the work that is being done to help resettle refugees in the Rochester area, and the work that is also being done to change policies at the national level to return our nation to its rightful legacy as a beacon of hope for refugees. A week ago last Friday, the Jewish Federation of Rochester hosted its annual legislative luncheon across the street at Temple Brith Kodesh. And at that luncheon, identified work with refugees as one of their 3 key commitments for the upcoming year. 2 days later, the Islamic Center of Rochester on Westfall Road held an event hosting nearly 300 people of all faiths and backgrounds to support refugees and refugee groups in the Rochester area and learn more about the cultures of people that are coming to this country as refugees. In Brighton, our Jewish, Christian, and Islamic communities work together for the common good. They know each other's names, they know each other's work, and they respect each other's faith, perhaps most important of all. The work of these groups and so many others is consistent with our understanding that in Brighton, our diversity makes us strong, and that helping refugees, people who have often left unspeakable danger in their former homes and endured years of dispersion and have been vetted, those refugees and welcoming them to this country doesn't represent a threat. In fact, it represents charity at its very best. Our faith communities and the many service groups in Brighton, groups like the Brighton Rotary Club, Brighton Kiwanis Club, Brighton Neighbors United, Jewish Family Services, and others, connect volunteers with unmet needs in the community for the good of all of us. Thank you. Judy Schwartz is here tonight on behalf of Brighton Neighbors United, but I know we have people that are connected with some of those other groups here as well. Our connections with other levels of government and our governmental officials are also important to enhancing the quality of life. Congresswoman Louise Slaughter could not be with us tonight, but she's fought long and hard for this area and for issues that are important to Brighton residents. I specifically want to acknowledge Assembly Majority Leader Joe Morelli and Senator Joe Robach, both of whom have gone to bat for the town of Brighton, for the Brighton Central School District, and for our first responders in so many ways. Both Assemblyman Morelli and Senator Robach have representatives with us tonight. I want to thank you both, and I'd like you to please extend our appreciation to the Senator and the Assemblyman. County Clerk Adam Bello has been a leader in addressing the problem of vacant and neglected properties in this area, and I appreciate his assistance in addressing what continues to be, although we're making a lot of progress, a real problem for neighborhoods. Our Department of Public Works, our Highway Department, and our Sewer Department all work with our infrastructure needs, so we can easily think of their connections in terms of hardscape, streets, sidewalks, and sewers. But I want to suggest another connection that these departments and their personnel make with our residents: service. Last Sunday morning, I received a text from a fairly new resident of the Bel Air neighborhood. Overnight, he had suffered a serious sewer backup. He called the town, and two of our sewer department employees, Mike Gulnack and Kevin Quigley, responded to his call, worked for 4 hours, resolved the problem, and made a new friend. Tim Keefe, our Commissioner of Public Works, Highway Superintendent, Sewer Commissioner, you wear a lot of hats, but we also appreciate your leadership and send our thanks to Mike, to Kevin, but to everybody that works in those departments. As we look forward to 2018, our highway, sewer, and public work teams will be completing the green infrastructure project on Monroe Avenue, again, funded by a state grant to the town. They'll be engaged in drainage projects, including work in the Brooklawn neighborhood, resolving long-standing drainage problems. They'll be constructing sidewalks and engaging in a wide range of other projects. And believe me, I do mean a wide range. It's going to be a challenging summer. But those are projects, again, that are very important to maintaining and enhancing our quality of life. In the fall, they'll be back collecting leaves, and we're between now and then going to continue to look at ways that we can enhance that process. We know it's something, probably we don't always do as well as we'd like, but we know how important it is to you, and we're committed to make sure that that job gets done well. The planning department, along with our community volunteers, will also complete the Town of Brighton Comprehensive Plan Update, known as Envision Brighton, furthering our sustainability inputs and making sure that we do so with input from our community. Once again, I'm pleased to say that this is a project that has been supported by funding from the state of New York. I can't say enough about the great work that Senator Robach and Assembly Majority Leader Morelli provide for us. Now, on a related topic, clean sweep. We will continue to beautify Brighton, and on May 12th, we'll be holding Clean Sweep Brighton. We'll also be working with community partners like the Brighton Chamber of Commerce and a new beautification committee, which will soon begin seeking community members. Our goal for that committee is to work with neighborhood associations, with businesses, and other community groups and residents to find opportunities to beautify our streetscapes and public spaces throughout Brighton, and to also encourage businesses to continue to improve their facilities. New businesses and new business construction and redevelopment of existing properties also enhance the appearance of our commercial corridors. I welcome Qdoba, Red Sun Chinese Restaurant, One Hip Chick, Soul by One Hip Chick, and Forefront Audio, all of which have opened recently along Monroe Avenue, and Brighton's third Starbucks, which opened on West Henrietta Road, among the many new Brighton businesses. As I said before, the Brighton Police Department is second to none as a professional and community-focused law enforcement agency. As part of its community engagement initiative under Chief Henderson's leadership, the department restored the annual open house, where young and old alike have the opportunity to meet our officers and learn more about the equipment the department uses and the relationships that the Brighton Police Department has with other law enforcement agencies. Chief Henderson meets regularly with community groups, and officers are expected to initiate interactions with businesses, residents, and others to build important and lasting relationships within the community. Last month, the police department completed a reorganization of Brighton Justice Court security, hiring part-time police officers to take responsibility for court security. And tonight I can tell you that the town board has approved in executive session a reorganization of the senior organization of the department by voting to add a third lieutenant that will ensure that every one of our shifts will have direct supervision at the lieutenant level. Chief Henderson will be announcing all of those changes and promotions later this evening. But I congratulate everybody that's been promoted, and I thank you, Chief, and everybody in the department for your professionalism and your commitment to Brighton. The 2018 Town of Brighton budget includes over $25 million in appropriations, and we continue to put the highest priority on responsible fiscal management. Now, I get asked a lot, when are you going to reduce our taxes? Well, in the 2018 town budget, both the town-wide tax levy and the tax rate have gone down. The town continues to maintain a AA credit rating from Moody's, one of the highest ratings in the region. Brighton remains in compliance with the state tax cap, and the state comptroller has again determined that the town is not experiencing fiscal stress. Each of these measures is important to us as we maintain our infrastructure and look forward to making the significant capital expenditures that can be required to meet evolving community needs. These accomplishments are a credit to our finance director, Suzanne Saso, who works tirelessly for all of us. Now, along with responsible spending practices, identifying alternate revenue streams or funding sources for priority projects also helps us to remain financially strong. We've talked about some of the grants we've already received from the state. We continue to be successful in developing grant funding for our planned winter farmers market. About a year and a half ago, we opened the Brickyard Trail in the Sandra Frankel Nature Park. That's built on land that was purchased at a significant discount as an amenity, thanks to the incentive zoning approval for the landing of Brighton, a taxable project that also added significantly to our tax roll. Late in 2017, the town board approved an incentive zoning project along Clinton Avenue on land that was originally going to be taken off the tax roll for Empire State College, but now will be used for taxable development. The developer will provide the town with amenities of sidewalks on Elmwood Avenue and in the Lac DeVille area. More connections. Projects like these are the reason the town considers and will continue to consider incentive zoning applications in good faith. Community amenities from incentive zoning can include infrastructure improvements like sidewalks or trails, the acquisition and or development of open space for parkland or other community needs. No decisions are ever made in advance, and the process for reviewing incentive zoning applications is open, with town board meetings as required by law, and with scrupulous environmental review under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And by the way, the opportunity to prohibit tax breaks under COMITA if the town board determines that they're not warranted for a project. Again, speaking of taxes, in 2016, the town board and town assessor Elaine Ainsworth determined that Brighton real estate prices had risen dramatically and so quickly that our property assessments no longer reflected the true fair market value of properties in Brighton. Based on that information, we decided to conduct a town-wide revaluation of all real estate in Brighton. That upward trend in real estate prices has continued and even accelerated because Brighton homes are very much in demand. Town-wide revaluations are costly and require a great deal of effort from our small assessment staff, but it's always important that assessments reflect fair market value as accurately as possible, both for residential and commercial properties. In 2017, the assessor began the actual revaluation process, first for commercial properties and now for residential properties. Following the issuance of preliminary valuations for residential properties in December, the assessor has been holding informal reviews during January and February, as always, with the goal of resolving differences informally. I salute Town Assessor Elaine Ainsworth and her staff, particularly Sue Wentworth, for all the work they've done during this revaluation process. The end result will be assessed valuations and tax rates that are fair for everyone. The Brighton Recreation Department, led by Becky Cotter, is always looking to bring new recreational activities for people of all ages. From aquatics to Zumba, there's something for everyone at Brighton Recreation. And recreation programs are a low-pressure way to learn a new skill, sport, or activity. The summer and school break camps are especially popular with kids and working families. Sign up quickly. Our town park system has never been more popular, and we can thank Park Superintendent Matt Beeman for leading the team that maintains those parks and manages the lodges and other park facilities. The Brickyard Trail becomes more popular by the day, and we look forward to the construction of the new Highland Crossing Trail that will connect the Erie Canal Trail and the town park to Empire State College, Highland Park, and the Genesee River Trail, a joint project with the City of Rochester. We're currently giving special attention to Corbett's Glen Park, the jewel of our park system in Brighton. Frankly, it's being loved to death. Its popularity has caused problems for its neighbors, but also for the condition of the park itself. I've convened an advisory committee under the leadership of Dennis Adams, which has made recommendation to the town designed to preserve the sensitive environmental beauty of the Glen. Our goal is to review these recommendations and implement changes by Memorial Day, including, and this is very important, an educational campaign to ensure that park users understand how they can help keep Corbett's Glen a treasure for all of us for generations to come. The Brighton Farmers Market is the largest farmers market in the area, and its success is largely due to the leadership of Director Sue Gardner-Smith, who has identified and brought together a wide variety of farmers and other vendors, all of whom grow or produce their products in the Rochester Finger Lakes area. The market also serves as an opportunity for community groups to reach out, and the market hosts a variety of community events, like the Rotary Club, Our Community Bikes, Bike Take Back, Arts at the Market, Public Safety Days, and the Bike Rodeo. As I mentioned, we've received funding that will make the new home for the winter market in Buckland Park a reality, and we expect to begin the first phase of that project, renovating a large cinder block barn at the park later this year, with assistance from Senator Robach and Assembly Majority Leader Morelli. Both of them have been strong supporters of the market. The Brighton Memorial Library is a home away from home for hundreds of students, seniors, and families every day. Our library staff, led by Executive Director Jennifer Reese-Taggart and supported by the Volunteer Library Board of Trustees, headed by President Linda Rapkin, help people connect with the world in their community with books, computers, devices, but also with special events and programs of all kinds. I also want to thank the Volunteer Friends of Brighton Memorial Library. They also contribute money and countless hours of volunteer time to the library each year, particularly relating to the library book sale and the Friends of the Library bookstore. The library could not possibly begin to serve the number of people and offer the number of variety of services it currently does without the help from the Friends. Town Clerk and Receiver of Taxes Dan Amon deserves special kudos for the work he did at the end of 2017. When the tax bill was passed, limiting the ability of taxpayers to deduct sales and property taxes over $10,000, there was a rush to pay taxes before year end. Dan planned for that rush, and in just 2 days, Friday, December 29th, and he stayed open on Saturday, December 30th, the clerk's office served over 1,500 Brighton taxpayers who paid their taxes early to protect their deduction. Dan even helped a couple of taxpayers from other towns. Although he couldn't accept their tax payments, he walked them through the process and gave them guidance so they were able to make those payments in their own communities. He had spent the preceding week organizing and working with all of us here in Town Hall so that when the 29th arrived, the lines were long, but they moved remarkably quickly. Now, none of this comes as any surprise to those of you that know Dan, because he uniquely combines technology skills with a passionate commitment to customer service. Dan couldn't be here tonight. He's with his family, but Dan, we appreciate. Job well done by you and your whole team. Robin Wilt joined the town board this past year after winning election in November. And she's already engaged herself in several important issues that play into Brighton's sustainability initiatives. Robin has been a strong advocate for implementing bicycle lanes on East Avenue as part of the state DOT repaving project, advocating strongly and effectively to the state, including appearance just today on Evan Dawson's radio show over the noon hour. She's also been a leader in advocating that Brighton become a part of a new Community Choice Aggregation, or CCA, program, under which residents of Brighton could join with residents of other communities and use their collective buying power to purchase clean energy at reduced prices. I'm so pleased that you've hit the ground running, Robin, in your service working effectively for Brighton residents. Robin and her town board colleagues, Jim Vogel, Chris Warner, and Jason DePonzio, each chair a town board committee that meets at least monthly in meetings that are always open to the public. Each town board member also serves a number of other important roles in town government. Each town board committee, the Finance and Administrative Services Committee, Public Safety Committee, Public Works Committee, and Community Services Committee, includes 2 town board members, as well as myself. And those committees together review all or nearly all matters that come before the town board. Thank you, Jim, Jason, Chris, and Robin, for using your talents to serve the community. Judge Karen Morris and Judge John Falk are 2 of the most respected local judges in New York State. They both have many years of legal and judicial experience, and both of them have the unique ability to listen and respect everyone that appears before them, to find the best possible resolution for all concerned. Some might consider the matters coming before town court to be less important, but both Judge Falk and Judge Morris know just how important a given matter is to whomever is appearing before them on that day. That's just one of the many reasons people in the legal community, people in the law enforcement community, and people from all walks of life agree just how fortunate Brighton is to have two judges of the caliber of Judge John Falk and Judge Karen Morris. Pleased to have Judge Falk here with us tonight. Thank you to both of you for your service. Ken Gordon, attorney to the town. You see him up here attending every town board meeting, but his role is much broader than that. Ken often represents the town in litigation or communicates with counsel outside that represents us. He regularly reviews and prepares documents and agreements of all kinds. Ken advises senior staff of the town on legal matters and provides general legal advice. But Ken also brings his own experience and service as a former Brighton council member to the job, giving Ken a unique perspective on everything that the town does and that you do. Thank you, Ken, for your advice, your counsel, and your friendship. Looking towards the future, Brighton will continue to be a diverse and forward-thinking community. We must continue our efforts to become a community focused on sustainability. We must also recognize it as an inner ring community with limited open space suitable for commercial development, that redevelopment of properties is just as important, if not more important, than new development. Redevelopment of existing properties is not only more energy efficient than new construction, redevelopment can also help preserve the historic character of our community. We recently announced the formation of the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Board, the IDEA Board, an advisory board that will be made up of volunteers with experience in issues of diversity and inclusion, who can advise town government on best practices in that area, develop a diversity plan for Brighton, and collaborate with the Brighton Central School District's diversity undertakings. We're currently seeking volunteers for what will surely be a very important new advisory board for the community. I talked about Ken a moment ago. We will act aggressively where needed to protect the interests of our residents. Last year, Monroe County unilaterally changed its practices concerning reimbursement to towns for property maintenance charges that are billed to owners of those properties and then fail to pay. In order to continue our active efforts to pursue owners who allow their properties to deteriorate, the towns of Brighton and Arundecoit were forced to sue Monroe County to restore the county's guarantee of those property maintenance charges. Likewise, the State Canal Corporation and Power Authority recently announced plans to clear cut over 150 acres of canal embankment in Monroe and Orleans counties. And in fact, they started that work. The state failed to conduct the necessary environmental review of that project. And having seen the results on the west side and heard how strongly our residents felt about the negative impact of this project, the town supervisors of Brighton, Pittsford, and Parrington came together, and after attempting to negotiate an acceptable arrangement, took legal action to stop this whole clear cutting of canal embankments. Canal safety is important, but the Canal Corporation has not demonstrated that trees along the embankment have created emergency safety conditions. In fact, what we know is that in the most recent 100-year history of the canal, the only 3 canal breaches were caused not by trees, but by human activity. Now, in both of these matters, the canal matter and the property maintenance matter, we still hope to be able to reach some kind of mutually agreeable resolution, but we've been successful initially, and we will continue to enforce our legal rights where necessary to protect the interests of the town and our residents. Last year in my State of the Town message, I touched on Brighton's response to hate. Instead of meeting hate with hate, Brighton responded with love. Love at the JCC, where they opened their doors to people displaced by the windstorm in spite of anonymous threats. Love for all of our neighbors who were attacked anonymously, and that love was exemplified by the formation of CURB. What I did not know was the beautiful way that love was about to express itself here in Brighton, in a way that sets an example not only for Brighton, but for our nation and our world, if we are ever to escape the seeming inevitability of conflict. Tonight I want to end with their story, because it's a story of hope, a story of connection between people, as written by Brighton resident Monica Gabel. When I invited a number of community members to a meeting here at Town Hall in the aftermath of those anonymous hate flyers, two of the people I invited were Monica Gabel and Dr. Rashid Muhammad. Rashid and his wife, Monica, live across the street from me. Monica Gabel, just a few blocks away. That night, a special connection began right here at Town Hall, as Monica Gabel later wrote in Rochester Magazine. After that meeting that laid the foundation for the formation of CURB, Rashid tapped Monica on the shoulder. Rashid noted that Monica had introduced herself as Jewish and asked if he could join them for Shabbat dinner. Because while he was serving in the Air Force in Germany, he missed the chicken soup that the matriarch of his host family there made for Shabbos. That moment of connection, that meeting, that tap on the shoulder led to an extraordinary Brighton dinner party and a moving story about Shabbos in Brighton, the tradition of Eastern European food and the dietary needs of a Muslim, the brotherhood and sisterhood of Muslim, Jew, and Christian that began after a meeting here at Town Hall, but developed in a Brighton dining room over brisket, chicken soup, challah, and later cakes from Malik's Bakery, of course. That story is a Brighton story. It's a story about food and laughter, about how a diverse group of dinner guests discovered their connections and made new connections. And it's a story about hope for our future, not just as a town, but our future as a nation, our future for the world. Thank you, Monica, for finding the words you used to invite strangers to dinner, and for the words you used to share your story with the world. I am proud every day to be the supervisor of this great town, but I have never been prouder, never been more conscious of what an extraordinary community Brighton is. Home to extraordinary people, different in background and in faith, but connected in their common humanity. That is the state of the town. That is the state of the town of Brighton. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you, each of you, for the large and small things you do to connect us all. Good night. We have a long agenda, but I do have one more important proclamation tonight. And it's a proclamation noting African American History Month. Now, this year, African American History Month is particularly important. Several of us were at the Susan B. Anthony luncheon today. Today, we celebrate. Frederick Douglass celebrated. Frederick Douglass didn't know his birthday, but he celebrated it on Valentine's Day, 200 years ago. Susan B. Anthony, 198 years ago tomorrow. So it is most fitting that we issue this proclamation recognizing African American History Month and recognizing the importance of our history, of these two great Americans, Rochesterians. Whereas the town of Brighton celebrates our community as a home to a mosaic of many different cultures, and whereas when Carter G. Woodson established Negro History Week in 1926, he realized the importance of providing a theme to focus the attention of the public, to focus the public's attention on important developments and contributions that merit emphasis and recognition. Whereas today, African American History Month is denominated each year with a particular theme so that there can be a focus on substantive issues surrounding the struggles and successes that African Americans have experienced throughout history. Whereas the 2018 theme for African American History Month, African Americans in Times of War, and in that context, we recognize and honor the military history of African Americans that spans from colonial history to the present. And whereas in every war fought by or within the United States, the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, the World Wars, Korean War, the Vietnam War and the Gulf War, and the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as other conflicts, African Americans went bravely into battle, armed with courage and willingness to make the ultimate sacrifice, if necessary, for their fellow Americans. Now therefore be it proclaimed that it is with great pride that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and members of our town board in the town of Brighton do hereby recognize February 2018 as African American History Month in the town of Brighton. And it is with the utmost gratitude that we pay tribute to those African Americans who answered the call to service, served proudly, and have given them of themselves so unselfishly, not only in uniform, but following their service in their home communities to ensure the freedom and protection of our nation. And it's signed this 14th day of February 2018 by myself and by the members of the town board. We'll be displaying this here in Town Hall during the remainder of African American History Month and beyond. Now we will begin the open forum portion of the meeting. Now, as we always do, the open forum is an opportunity for members of the audience to address the town board on any matter, whether or not it's a matter on the agenda this evening. I would ask if you'd like to speak, and you may speak on any matter, whether it's on the agenda tonight or not, please raise your hand. I'll recognize you and would ask that you come up and use the podium. State your name and address if you would, please. Please direct your comments to the board. If you have written comments you'd like to submit, you can submit them to the Deputy Town Clerk and they'll be included in the record. I would ask that you not make comments relating to individual town employees during the open meeting. Now, if you're at home or somewhere else and watching, you can also participate in the open forum by calling 303-3060. Someone will take your question or your comment and pass them on to the board. We'll try to answer them just as we'll try to answer questions or comments you make here, or if we can't, we'll try to get back to you. If you're deaf or if you're hearing impaired, you can also participate in the open forum by calling our TDD line at 784-5205. Again, our TDD line, 784-5205. As always, we look forward to hearing from you with your comments and your questions, and I do want to start tonight we have someone here from Brighton Senior Rides, which is a new program that is offering rides to seniors in the Brighton and Penfield areas. And I would like to invite whoever is here from Brighton to come forward to the podium and tell us a little bit about Brighton and the opportunities for service. Good evening.
Good evening. You talked us into it.
Bill, can I start off here? First of all, I've taken on the role of being the liaison for the town council with the Brighton organization, and have been meeting with you monthly, and I found it to be quite an organization. Both Ruth and C are retired teachers, and they're not retired because they just hit the ground running when they saw the need here with this senior ride program that they helped organize and launch this past year. And it's been a pleasure to be part of that. But I think the important role to advocate here, or inform of everyone that this is an opportunity for others who are interested in making a difference in their community. And in this case, Brighton stands for Brighton Penfield, and it's an organization that covers these two towns, and has really gotten this program off to a good start. And I've asked them to come in tonight because I thought here as well as in Penfield, for the town council meetings, this would be very important for the residents to really understand what is going on, the need that's being met, and how they might also become involved as well. So Ruth and C.S., welcome tonight.
Thank
really.
you. Thank you so much, Jim.
Sure.
We appreciate that, and we welcome the opportunity to speak with you about a program that is near and dear to our hearts, primarily because we found out about a lady who was in her 90s, living on Elmwood Avenue, who had no way to get to Strong Memorial Hospital for some pretty significant treatments. And we were told that she was taking the RTS bus. So the very next day, I called Sister Ann Guerin from Lifespan. She is the overseer for the Give a Lift program. We met with her. She invited several representatives from faith communities, the fire departments, government offices, after which we formed a committee. We engaged in a survey of the town to see if there was a need and or interest, which was overwhelmingly yes. At this time, since launching our program May 1st of 2017, we currently have over 90 65-plus clients enrolled in our program. We give rides many times a week, Monday through Friday to medical appointments within Monroe County, Monday through Friday to activities at the Brighton and Penfield Recreation Centers. We also transport seniors to religious services on weekends. We're very grateful to the Brighton and Penfield Recreation Centers for their enormous support. We are grateful to the Penfield Post for putting a small article in the In Brief section of the newspaper, as well as the Brighton Connections, which in the November issue contained a full half-page feature article, which helped tremendously.
Good.
We're very grateful for that. We are a 100% volunteer organization. Our drivers receive no compensation of any kind. We cannot take gas money. We cannot accept a gratuity or tip. We are covered by Lifespan with a volunteer insurance policy. Having said that, we are 100% dependent on client donation. We have no means of funding anywhere else. What we would ask of the town council is to aid us in getting the word out, not only to 65-plus seniors in our two towns, but also to try to get more volunteers. We are always in need of drivers, always, always, always. The drivers are trained and held to very, not strict, but significant standards of behavior and sensitivity to folks. For example, we just registered a client who is extremely sensitive to fragrances. So we tell our drivers, please, not to overdo the cologne that day. We are also in need of a not-for-profit organization, faith community, that would be willing to be our sponsor. Right now, our donations have to come in the form of cash, which some people are uncomfortable with. So we are looking for a sponsor. Thank you so much. I was told to keep it to 2 to 3 minutes.
This is our T-shirt, the design.
And it's got a phone number on there.
It does.
And for people who would like to volunteer and drive for Brighton, what number should they call, and who are they going to talk to when they call that number?
Well, they won't speak to a human. It is a dedicated phone line housed at the Penfield Recreation Center. The client calls and leaves their name, phone number, what kind of information they would like, or how they would like to offer assistance. And one of our 6 dispatchers will call that person back.
And
So
that
we-
number is?
585-340-8674.
340-8674. Now, you also mentioned looking for an agency or a group to serve as a sponsor.
Yes.
Would that be to facilitate, more traditional donations? What would the organizational sponsor be asked to do? What role would they play?
Well, we feel that the sponsor would help to give us more credibility and to help us form a partnership. And we would pool our resources together, make us
It would also,
stronger. Go ahead.
it would also help us to save on a little sales tax, for a not-for-profit.
Okay.
We wouldn't have to pay sales tax, but, and a secure place to have our donations, an organization to which our clients would be able to write a check.
Yeah.
Good, okay. Any other questions from town board members?
Yeah, I need
Think
both
over
of
here.
your names for the record.
Ruth, R-U-T-H, O'Brien, O-B-R-I-E-N.
And my name is Sia, C-E-A, Gallant, G-A-L-L-A-N-T.
Perfect, thank you.
Ruth and Sia, thank you both.
Thank you.
We have flyers and brochures that we will leave for anyone who may
Great.
be interested. Yes,
Ruth
you
and
may,
Sia, I'd ask that you, let's have you come back in about 6 months. Give us more or less an update and see how we're doing.
Okay, thank
We
you.
would like
We need to
that very
keep this
much.
in front of the public.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
very
idea,
much,
Jim.
ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board during the open forum? Come on up, Mark. Oh, I'm sorry, Martin, wanna-
Hello, Margaret Pete, 129 Clink Road. I'm here to applaud the town on moving community choice aggregation forward by setting a date for a public hearing tonight. At that public hearing, you'll be reviewing a proposed amendment to the CCA local law that was already reviewed by the public in September. I can't be here by March 14th, so you have me here today. So I'm here to remind you in just a few sentences about why I think this is so important. First, climate change is real and carbon emissions are the primary culprit. Our federal government has made it clear it will not act on climate change, and New York State has enabled towns to create community choice aggregation groups to pool buying power to get renewable energy at a low cost. CCA, when used to select 100% renewable energy, will result in reduced carbon emissions. If homeowners in Brighton don't want to participate in a CCA effort to get renewable energy, they can opt out. CCA can seek renewable energy at a cost cheaper than fossil fuel-based energy is now obtained. This has been proven in some towns and villages in Westchester County, and it can be done here too. So thank you for getting onto the renewable energy road. To change everything, we need everybody, and that means the Brighton Town Board as well. Passing the local law and choosing 100% renewable energy as a default energy supplier is going to get us where we need to go. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Margie, or at least it's a good start.
That's right.
Judy.
Judy Schwartz, 179 Ashbourne Road. This is the last call for the Brighton Neighbors United Supper, March 4th, and it's a perfect segue into what Margie just said because our topic is CCA, and Eric Hittinger is going to be our speaker to explain what is a CCA anyway. Some of us who come to these meetings know, but I think that for the most part, our community really doesn't know that much about it, so they'll be able to hear about it and ask questions, and reservations are due by the 21st of February. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Oh, it's March 4th, 6 o'clock, Buckland Lodge. And my number is 442-5111 if you need a reservation form.
Great. And I believe there are still reservation forms also out on the table in our lobby. Would anyone else like to address the board during the open forum? Hearing none, we will continue with the agenda. And can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Dave, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel,
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Public hearings. We do have 3 public hearings tonight. The first one is relating to the formation of extension number 101 to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District, relating to the proposed Pinnacle Hills subdivision project. Dave, has the necessary legal notice been given?
Yes, it has.
In that case, I declare this public hearing to be open. Is there anyone who would like to address the town board concerning this public hearing on Extension 101 to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District? You all do have material in the packet, quite an extensive. Oh, Jim, I didn't see you. Sorry. Come on up.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the town board on the matters before the board. I'm actually consolidating
Jim,
my
can
remarks.
I just ask? Oh, okay.
I'm consolidating my remarks for both the first and second matter before the board.
That's
My
fine.
name is James Swartz, S-W-A-R-T-S. I reside at 39 Willard Avenue, town of Brighton. As of next week, I'll have been in that residence for 39 years. I'm very proud and happy member of the Brighton community. My street, Willard Avenue, is covered by the proposed Pinnacle Hills subdivision and the request for the formation of a Pinnacle Hills storm drainage district and the extension of the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District relating to this proposed subdivision. As I have shared with all the members of this board at separate settings, not here, the consensus of the Brighton residents from the Highland, Howland, Willard, and Midland Avenue neighborhood is absolute opposition to this attack on the fragile environment, which will be destroyed if this project goes forward. This area is adjacent to a federal wetland and is itself a drainage area of Pinnacle Hill. Several years ago, Councilman Vogel examined the area in response to a complaint over the eroded conditions of Willard Avenue, Midland Avenue, and Eldridge. As you may recall, he advised me at that time that the geological study had shown that the area is undergirded by underground streams that make the area geologically unstable. As was pointed out during the public hearings before the Brighton Planning Board, the ground in this planned subdivision failed the perk test, meaning that houses must be built mostly above ground at a higher level because the ground is not stable enough for them to dig deep cellars. So the question remains, in this wetland area, how can there be any assurance that construction of sewers and drainage systems will not fail and or create more problems that our town highway department will be called upon to clean backup and other problems resulting from laying sewers and drainage in an unstable geological area? As was revealed in planning board hearings, sewer lines cannot be extended directly into the Midland Avenue area because of the federal designated wetlands. While New York State failed to extend state protection to the federal wetland area, resulting in making the adjacent land unprotected, that does not mean that the remaining adjacent area is any less sensitive and deserving of protection from development. On behalf of my neighbors, I am here to ask the Brighton Town Board to reject the petition requesting the formation of the Pinnacle Hills Storm District and the extension of the Brighton Consolidated Sewer Districts relating to the proposed Pinnacle Hills subdivision on Highland Avenue. This proposed subdivision will not add to the quality of life in Brighton, but rather despoil a unique wilderness area in the heart of our suburb that is of more value as a preserved natural park than paved over for the benefit of an out-of-town builder who will be long gone after the environmental damage is done. As we have already heard this evening, our town is proud of their new parks and the recreation areas that add to the quality of life of Brighton. All of the 12 acres encompassing the land in question deserve the same protection as the areas protected by the other town parks. One last point to consider is the financial burden these proposals will make on your Brighton constituents who will be forced to connect to a new sewer system, including houses that were built in the 1930s. The houses on these streets are very old and small, and the cost of connecting to a sewer line would greatly exceed the value that could be added by being in a designated sewer district for most of these properties. Therefore, we respectfully request the members of the Brighton Town Board to reject the petitions relating to the proposed Pinnacle Hills subdivision. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jim. Do you want to submit those, if those are written comments, do you want to submit them as part of the record?
I don't think anybody could read my writing.
That's fine.
Sure.
I think you've,
I think it's all been canceled.
okay.
Misspellings and all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to, address the board on this matter? Tim, this is a project that was scaled down dramatically from its original size and did go through the planning board process. can you maybe address that process, the process of the concerns that that were asked here? I guess, but before I do, I'm just going to ask you one question. I know the sewer extension is for these new properties. Are existing homes also required to connect to the sewer?
Not at this time,
Okay.
Supervisor.
That was my understanding, that they were not required to. It's actually an opportunity. They will be in a position to connect with a lateral to this sewer line if, for example, their septic system were to fail. They would have the choice at that point, or they could have the choice really at any time
That's correct.
to connect or not to. Okay, thanks. Tim, anything else in terms of the
Certainly,
planning board action?
with all due respect to Mr. Schwartz, staff has looked at this in great detail. Our town engineer and town planner have done diligence reviewing this. For some of the reasons Mr. Schwartz noted relative to the groundwater and other things, as you mentioned, Bill, failing septic systems may come into play. This gives an opportunity for people to actually be more environmentally compliant, if you will, with the sewer system there, being able to connect to that in the future at some point.
Okay.
Also, I don't know if I would totally disagree with the assessment that we have an unstable geologic condition out there. I think that the groundwater is high, we know that. There are construction techniques that are able to be done during construction to control groundwater.
I just want to clarify, did you say you wouldn't necessarily agree with the assessment as being
Of unstable geologic formation out there,
Yes,
correct.
that's different than high water.
That's correct.
And it's different as well from the fact that there may be some groundwater flow. Okay.
Right. So I know that this has been a debated project, if you will, throughout the process. When it first came in, and it was, as you said, a larger project, Bill, that was changed by the developer to an 8-lot subdivision along Willard. And the question about the wetlands, there are wetlands there, certainly. Everything has been taken into account with the design of this project relative to the wetlands. And there actually, I believe there's lands that the town will be getting to expand upon Persimmon Park as part of this proposal as well.
We have a negative declaration on this action. That is a negative declaration serving as a finding statement by the town board. Actually, what you have in your packet is the negative declaration as well from the planning board, which identifies the addition of about 8.3 acres of open space, mitigating the loss of approximately 3.3 acres of existing forest, noting that the wetland is a federal wetland, as Mr. Swartz mentioned, but as required by the Army Corps of Engineers, there is no disturbance of that existing wetland. Is that correct? Okay. The town board is an involved agency, and will also, if action is taken tonight, will be making environmental findings as part of its negative declaration as well. Yes, come on up. Yeah, come on up to the podium, please.
Hello, I'm Barbara Yanni. I own property at 162 Howland Avenue. I'm just curious if there is a place that we could go to as citizens to look at what has been presented by the developer, what kind of studies have been done and what the actual findings are, and what the recourse of that action would be. Is there a place that we could go to look at that?
In the Public Works Department, the Building and Planning Department has a file that you're more than welcome to come in and look at that has been, basically a reflection of the proposal through the planning board to this point. So, please come in and we'll make that file available to you anytime.
As well as the earlier proposal, which would have involved a 24-lot
Right.
Right.
development. Both of the files on both of those would be available.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information. Thank you.
Anyone else to address the board during the public hearing? Any comments from board members? Obviously, you'll have an opportunity to comment and discuss this once the public hearing is closed and there's a motion on the table. Hearing no further comments, I declare this public hearing to be closed. We may want to, if you choose, discuss this, but in any event, let's have someone make a motion to take action, and then we are in a position to discuss it.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, Jim seconded that. To take the action as set forth in the resolution that's attached. Discussion on that.
Bill, we've discussed this subdivision many times, Public Works particularly, and I've been impressed by the reaction of the developer. He came with a much more intensive development. He had a lot of, resistance to that, but yet he persisted with trying to redesign it to accommodate those concerns. And we now have gotten to the point that this private property will be developed rather than 24 lots. It will now be 8 lots. It's much less extensive, much less intrusion into the wetlands, and in fact, the much greater portion of the lot is being dedicated to the town to add to Persimmon Park. My understanding is it's close to 12 acres over there, of which only 3.3 is going to be developed, and the rest of it's all going to be transferred to the town as part of our park. Also, it's going to make sewers available to that neighborhood. I don't believe it's going to be required of them, but it is an opportunity to hook into sewers rather than being dependent upon septic systems. And all in all, this is private property. It is not town property. It is not a public park. I would love if we could leave everything in town undeveloped that doesn't have development on it today to the extent of preserving the environment. But the reality is this is a very generous balance, I think, between development and preservation. And there's got to be some accommodation for the owner's ability to develop his own property. 3.3 acres out of approximately 12 acres, I think, is a pretty fair balance in our favor.
Can I just get some clarification as to where we are in the approval process for the development? This is just for the extension of the sewer district. But as far as the approval of the 8-lot subdivision that had to go before the planning board, does that have to come before the town board for further proceedings, or does that stay within the jurisdiction of the planning board?
Just planning board, Jason.
Okay, and where are they with the approval process?
I believe they've received their approvals.
They have, okay, they have received the planning board approvals, okay. Because before, there was, when it was the larger project,
Right.
then it was.
Correct,
It
but
would have
this is-
required town board, but since it's been scaled back,
Correct.
it's simply a subdivision approval
That's
before the
correct.
planning board. Okay, thank you.
I can just add also in terms of where we are, that there are some ongoing discussions and negotiations taking place relative to some easement agreements and relative to some dedication of some lands that need to take place to make the subdivision a reality. And those discussions are ongoing between myself and counsel for the developer.
Obviously, there would be no charges and no construction at this time, even if the board were to take action on this district, unless and until the infrastructure was put in, which would only happen after a project was, all the details were finally approved.
Yes, all that's true, and the town engineer and I have been working together to make sure that the easements and other agreements that the town is party to for this development are consistent with what we've done in the past relative to similar projects in town.
Good. Thank you. Further discussion?
Well, I just wanted to say that I was struck by the fact that the proposed development will not cause a disturbance to the existing wetland. And again, I will echo Chris's sentiment that the acquisition of the 8.3 acres is additional parkland. I think it is a significant benefit that is accruing to the town.
At no cost to the town.
At no cost to the town. So I was struck by that aspect of the project as well.
I'd also add that the acreage that would be added significantly, in my opinion, would mitigate some of the concerns we had earlier in a larger project that was being proposed, that this would help really preserve those lands, the vast majority of those lands, as Chris mentioned, in a much more enlightened manner than what was the originally proposal. And Jim, I don't remember saying that land was totally unstable. I said that there was water a lot on the land, recognizing that. They had aquifers and so on. But clearly, the ownership of this land, and the owner has a right for development within reason. And I think what we're hearing here is a proposal that would make far more, sense, not only to the community, but also to the construction of these homes on 3 acres as opposed to 12 or 3.5 acres. So my concern has always been that we don't misuse or abuse these lands, especially when they are recognized as having wetlands that should be recognized and addressed and treated as such. And so I think from that standpoint, this is a far different project than what it was initially proposed in the past few years.
Any further comments? Thank you. David, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
Ponzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Next matter relates to the Pinnacle Hills Drainage District. The first one was an extension to the sewer district. This is the Pinnacle Hills Drainage District, but for the same proposed 8-lot subdivision. Dave, has the necessary legal notice for this matter been given?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. In that case, I declare this public hearing on the Pinnacle Hills Drainage District to be open. And Jim, we will include your comments on the record of both of these public hearings, but would you or anyone else like to add any comments to the record of this public hearing? Sure, come on up. No, come on up.
My name is Leith Duker. I live at 721 Leith, Duker, Dueker. I live at 721 Highland Avenue, which is just adjacent to where the development will be placed. And Jim's been really good at keeping the neighbors informed of the ramifications of this development and how it can impact our small part of Brighton. And while I understand that, a lot of acreage is being added to the park, a lot of this land wasn't developable, couldn't be developed anyway. So while it may seem like a great generous gift, in all reality, it was federal wetland, so you can't build on it anyhow. So the the generosity of the developer to give this land to Brighton, I can look at that in a couple different ways. I've been to a number of the planning boards in regards to this development, and the extension of the sewers, while that does serve a lot of us who are on septic, and we are a small part of the community that's still on septic and don't have those services. To Jim's point, if I were going to go on a septic, I'd have to pay 20 grand. And that's not money that improvement to my house, I'm not going to get 20 grand for that. Nobody's going to say, I'll pay you 20 grand more for your house if you connect to a septic. Or I'm sorry, to
Understand, connect to the sewer.
But that was a moot point. I just wanted to hear everyone out on how they saw this project develop, the scope. The planning board did do a very effective job at looking at us, at the project, and giving our neighbors a chance to speak to their concerns. What really kind of blew me away when I went to the last one where they finally made a vote on this was the fact that it seemed like our community was making a lot of concessions to make this happen. Like, they really wanted this to happen. And our neighbors, the people that were in the community that are going to be affected by this development, seem to be kind of like, well, I think what you said earlier about it being private property, that's exactly when I walked away and I was like, wow, in terms of my voice in Brighton and me buying a house 2 years ago, the scope of my neighborhood will completely change. And that's what blew me away, was like, my voice doesn't have really too much of anything to offer unless I was an attorney and I could come up with a legal point to why they couldn't develop in this area. The only safeguard that our community missed was the actual recognizing this as a state wetland versus a federal wetland. I think that's an interesting point that maybe I don't completely grasp because I'm not schooled in this. But if we are going to build a large pool at the bottom of the street to collect runoff, I think there's serious consideration in terms of what the runoff is and where it's running to, and how that really does impact the safety of the community. Because what they proposed was to build 8 houses in a cesspool at the bottom of the street. They're not going to put in sidewalks, they're not going to widen the road, they're not going to even put a cul-de-sac at the end of the street to make it at least a comfortable turnaround. As far as I can tell, the developer's taken every shortcut to maximize their profits, to include building a building that is large as possible on the smallest size lot that they can possibly develop, because it's not a federally protected wetland or a state protected wetland. So as I look at this, and I don't know if you as a board have any kind of influence on it, other than to say, yes, nobody's brought up any objection where we could actually stand behind the neighborhood that's being affected by this and saying, all right, let's scale it back, or let's accommodate it, or make the development more comfortable for the community that's being affected by it. So I know I brought up a lot of different points that probably don't have any relevance, but I did want to state my objection to it and my concerns about my son playing on that street where there's a large pool of water now at the bottom of it, and that's our drainage system.
Thank you.
I thank the board for your time.
Thank you. It's certainly, certainly relevant comments. Again, I would note that some of the, I'll use the word amenities, that you describe when the development was proposed to be much larger, the 24-lot development did have different again, I'll use the word amenities. It was a very different project. Obviously, it had an outlet, right. So that was, went through the planning board process. The difference between state and federal wetlands, state wetlands do have a much higher level of protection, but these are federal wetlands, and they have complied with the Army Corps' regulations in that regard. Jim, let me just first ask, is there anyone else that would like to address the board before I invite Jim up a second time? Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. This is the last map that was approved by the planning board, and you will see, in fact, the current plan still has, adjacent to Lot 2 and Lot 1, still a large drainage pond, open drainage pond on the land. It's not drained. And my understanding, the difference, and the reason I brought up about the federal and state, was Mr. Coffey, who's not here tonight from Midland, had the state come in. And if the state had approved this, the state requirements is no construction within 50 feet. So the 50 feet of the federal wetlands would have eliminated.
Of the state wetland, if it had been state wetland.
It would have expanded 50 feet beyond the federal, which would have made this whole point mute. And the whole thing was vetoed by the state because of the cost of redoing the maps at the time. That was their only excuse. So, addressing Mr. Warner's comments about private property, when Mr. Vogel came down, that was owned by Glassers at that time.
Right.
And the Glassers, and I forget the company in Webster before them that had the land, all decided this land wasn't worth building on. So, yes, it is private land. I agree with you. But it's been, as I said, I've been there for 39 years. It's gone through quite a few private hands, and other people decided this isn't worth building. But what was shown originally for the easement for the sanitary system, that was cut off going up to the houses on Midland, because that would have gone into the federal wetlands, which encompasses this area here, which also forced the original plan to have these lots all the way down to here to force them to be shorter. But again, the big point that Lee was bringing up is about the fact that this is so much water in this plan that it requires this very large pond to be constructed. And that will, of course, be part of what I understand on this proposal will be part of what will be donated to the town of Brighton. And with all due respect, we'd like to see the whole 12 acres of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any further questions from residents?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sure, come on up.
Do I have to reintroduce myself?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. I only had one other question in regards to taxes.
Yes.
Relevant to this project. Of course, there are two things, as I understand it, that are going to happen. An extension of the sewage system and a construction of a drainage system. Both are burdens to our local community in terms of maintenance and support. Who's paying for that? The construction, who's paying for the maintenance, and overall, who are my taxes going to increase because of drainage for 8 houses and for septic applied to these 8 houses that won't apply to mine?
And I'm going to have Tim walk through that.
Thanks, Supervisor. The beauty of a district is that the people in the district pay for it. You do not. If you're not in the drainage district, you incur no costs. So anything that would happen in the future for the drainage district, if the town had to go out and respond, that gets charged back to the properties in the drainage district. Same thing with the sewer district. However, the consolidated sewer district is fairly large because it encompasses, most of whatever sewers are in town. There's a few exceptions. So, and they pay in, and there's also rates for, your, whatever you discharge to the sewer. So there's formulas for the town and for the county so that there are monies collected to fund any kind of maintenance in the future or whatever, and that's, again, via a district.
But only against the properties that are part of the district.
That's correct. Only the properties in the district are the ones that pay into the, these funds.
So the board right now is in a position to vote for a new drainage system. And as I understand it from what you just told me, 8 houses are going to support the burden for that drainage system.
Yep.
And the extension of the, I keep wanting to say septic system, but it's sewer system.
Right.
That's going to be spread across the entire community as just an extension of an existing service.
Correct. Only for those parcels that are receiving sewer service in the town, right?
Okay, I'm clear. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Again, if the board has any questions that need to be on the record, that's fine. Otherwise, discussion can be after the public hearing is closed. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board in this public hearing? Hearing none, I declare the public hearing on the Pinnacle Hills Drainage District to be closed. Again, can I have a motion so we can begin discussion?
Was this on the sewer?
The drainage, we took action on the sewer district. This is the drainage district.
Second.
Second item.
Oh, excuse me. I was looking at the one below.
Yeah, then there's another unrelated sewer district hearing. Yeah.
So with respect to the proposed formation of the Pinnacle Hills Drainage District relating to the Pinnacle Hill subdivision project, I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion.
Tim, you want to, again, describe the type of drainage system that is part and parcel of this project? That would be a question that Lee had, and as well as Jim.
Yeah, certainly, Jim. Part of it's an enclosed system that collects through catch basins and pipes and into the pond. There's also an open drainage system along the rear of the properties that drains, because of the elevation and topography, it drains from north to south towards the pond. And again, the point was made about, if this land being donated to the town. Well, in this particular case, the parcel that the pond is on is donated, and it's for the drainage district only. It's not really the same as the other lands that the town is acquiring that are that encompass wetlands and are contiguous to Persimmon Park. So the pond itself has design parameters. It's there for stormwater quality as well as stormwater quantity. We follow the Phase 2 regulations with every project where there's development in this regard, so that nutrients, pollutants, and things are removed before they're discharged from the pond. So it is it's not just a collection of water. It actually does do treatment before it's discharged.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions or comments? And by the way, if I didn't, the public hearing was closed.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. David, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePoncio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Next is proposed extension 102 to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District. This is a proposed extension relating to a single property, 2212 West Henrietta Road. David, has the necessary legal notice been given in this matter?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. I declare the public hearing on proposed extension 102 to to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District to be open, and I will ask Tim just to briefly discuss the property in question and the proposed improvements.
Certainly, Supervisor. It's one single lot that is coming into the, into the district. There's an easement associated with it also, which I believe is on the agenda further on in the evening. And there will be improvements of sanitary sewer installation by the property at 2212 West Henrietta Road. So this is certainly a classic situation where we do have a failed septic system. And it's, the only option at this point. It's a good option. Obviously, any properties we can get off septic where it's not, there's a lot of properties in town that were approved many years ago, and it really wasn't suitable for the size of the lot or the soils, and this happens to be the culmination of that situation. So it's a bonus to get them onto public sewers.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on the proposed extension 102 to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District public hearing? Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, I declare this public hearing to be closed. Can I have a motion, please?
Bill, with respect to the proposed extension of the number 102 to the Brighton Consolidated Sewer District relating to property at 2212 West Henrietta Road, I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dave, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
DePoncio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. We have no bids. Communications. We have several items of communications. I referenced one attaboy letter, but we also got another one from Richard Rosenblum, former judge Richard Rosenblum, complimenting Adam, and I'm blanking on Adam's last name here, Tim. I know he's talking to the town attorney, but for work that
Adam's last name?
Adam's last name?
Adam Secor.
Secor, that's right. So again, complimentary to our sewer department. We have correspondence from County Legislator Vince Felder congratulating me on my swearing in, and really by implication, all of us that were sworn in that day, and his comments on the good working relationship with the county legislature. We have the annual reports from the town historian, Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, and our town justices, so a lot of good information on all of those activities. We also have correspondence from Ginny Hall relating to the women's rally and some information about Whole Foods. And the one that I was particularly pleased to hear about is the fact that even though it's been in place and open for over a year and a half now, the Brickyard Trail is still receiving awards. And I heard from Mark Bayer just a couple of days ago that the upstate chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects gave the Brickyard Trail, and specifically Bayer Landscape Architects, who were the landscape architects on the project, their 2017 Merit Award for the project. We've worked with Mark a lot of times. This was great work, and we're pleased, and I know he's pleased to have gotten the award. Can I have a motion to receive and file all of those?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dave, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
DePoncio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Committee reports. Community Services. Robin.
The Community Services Committee has not met since our last town board meeting. Our next meeting will be on Thursday. Please note the difference in date. February 22nd at 9:30 a.m. at the Brighton Rec Center at 220 Idlewood Road. as usual, we welcome all members of the community to join us.
Thanks, Robin. Finance, Jason.
Yes, Bill, Finance and Administrative Services Committee met last Tuesday, February 6th. Each of the items discussed during the FAST meeting appear on tonight's agenda, except there was a discussion with our IT Director, Jeremy Lutz, regarding the purchase of a SAN, which is a disk storage device. If I can put it into layman's terms, basically it would be a system of servers to provide backup for our town computer system that would be more efficient and provide a better capability of recovery in the event of a catastrophic event with the computer system here.
And VMware.
VMware, yes.
Virtualized servers with virtualization software, all of which, and the reason it's not on our agenda is there is enough money in the budget for this, but, you know, I thought and Jeremy thought it was good to just give the board the opportunity to hear about what is a pretty significant upgrade in our server capacity.
Yes. In fact, when I first saw the VMware written on the chalkboard back in the stage conference room, I thought it had to deal with our voicemail system, but I realized it was something completely different. So it was good that Jeremy was there and able to explain it to the rest of us, and that this is available, and it's and right because of the budget decisions that were made last year. There is adequate funding in order to acquire this equipment then this year, so it doesn't have to come back for board approval. So our next meeting, actually there's a change in our schedule, will be held this Friday. Instead of next Tuesday, we're going to be meeting this Friday, February 16th. We'll be meeting at 3:30 in the afternoon in the stage conference room here at Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thank you, Jason. Jim, Public Safety?
Yes, Public Safety met yesterday morning, and at that time we went through a number of information sharing, and from the Brighton Ambulance, they had reported that during the month of January, they had 559 calls, and that was quite an active month, but they were able to cover well over 95, almost 96% of those calls as a part of their performance. Brighton Fire also had about 245 during the month of January, and rather significant. And under Brighton Police, Mark, you want to help us with this? This is kind of interesting. We had promotions, but also the opioid meeting that you've got scheduled for the 12th of next month.
And I was going to ask Mark if you would. I mentioned in my speech that we had some changes coming in the department, but Mark, if you could lay out the restructuring and the promotions.
I'll be happy to, Supervisor. Jim, would you like me first to address that opioid
Yes.
on Monday, March 12th? I know we have a board intervening between that date and the actual forum. The Superintendent McGowan in the school is spearheading with Dr. Mendoza from the Monroe County Mental Health Director a community discussion about the opioid epidemic that's affecting the region. I'm honored to be a panelist to talk about our cooperative and collaborative law enforcement response in addition to social services, and we'll have more on that as we get closer. We'll put out on social media what it is that we're going to talk about. We met earlier in an executive session. I briefed the board last week on my request to reorganize the department to add a layer of beyond the first line of supervision, the rank of lieutenant. At our night shift, we currently have 2 lieutenants. Thank you to the board for approving that structural change. That'll offer a clarity of command in the police department. And I also thank you for those watching at home. I'm only a recommending authority. You are the appointing authority. And I've asked that the following promotions be effective, and you moved on it earlier this evening. Lieutenant Michael Desane will be going from the rank of lieutenant to captain. Sergeant David Swancott will be going to the rank of lieutenant. Sergeant Christopher Wagner will be going to the rank of lieutenant. Investigator Brian Cicery will be going to the rank of sergeant. These promotions do not become effective until Saturday, March 3rd. We usually tie our promotional ceremonies to the town board, but in this case, due to the volume in the upcoming town board meeting scheduled for the 28th, we're going to have a special day on Friday, March 2nd at 2 p.m. in this room, a formal promotion ceremony. So thank you to the supervisor and the board for accepting my recommendation. I have reported out to staff my proposal, and I'll be pleased to send a follow-up email that you had moved in executive session tonight.
Thank you. They're all experienced officers, and they've served us well and will clearly continue to do so.
They will so, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And under old business, update on the special events. You want to comment on that too, Mark? We're talking about...
This is the time of year that we go over special events. Nothing unusual. The marathon is not coming into Brighton this year. We will be impacted by the 5K, 10K for the Lilac Festival. We're finalizing the details for that. There is an event that's had minimum impact in the past along East River Road. I get a little bit more details after our meeting. It's just a formality that we assist them. They come out of the park in the city. There is no traffic closures along East River. So as we formalize them at the March meeting, we'll ask that you take formal action to approve the proposed special events.
Great.
Good. All right. And another matter under old business was the Corbett's Glen Advisory Council recommendations that Bill asked that we review, and also with Chris Warner, who's the chair of Public Works. We thought it would be a good time to get a collaborative effort going with the various committees to really take a look at the recommendations and move forward as to what and how we need to address the concerns and the needs for Corbett's Glen. One of those, several of those, is the continued discussion on how to effectively manage the parking issue and visitors with respect to the park, and also the type of signage that should be in place to really help educate and inform the public at large as to the concerns, but also how to best support that in an ongoing basis as a beautiful public park. And on that order, Chief Henderson, Mark, shared some of the data with regard to the parking complaints and the 911 calls for service. Mark, do you want to comment on that?
One of the things that we talked about, amongst the other activity that the police department can do from an education standpoint and an enforcement standpoint, one of the things that we have ramped up the past couple of years is our attention to the parking along Glen Road. And from a data analytics perspective, I shared with you earlier, I think it was yesterday, and then we broke it down today. We wrote 391 parking tickets last year on Glen Road. When I became chief, the year 2010, we wrote 20 in that particular area. We broke down that figure a little bit closer, and of that 391 tickets, 21 were Brighton residents, issued to Brighton residents that were illegally parked. The other 370 tickets did not, some were out of the state, some were out of our county. A majority of them, 95%, were non-town residents. Very popular park. We are not getting compliance with the parking restrictions in that area, and a lot of those restrictions deal with the availability of emergency vehicles to get into the park. And then, I raised my concerns if there is some change to some of the usage laws, what the approaches we would take from a law enforcement perspective. But we'll continue to monitor the data. I'll be publishing our annual report next month, and it'll show some of our efforts. But Corbett's Glen is an area that we are focusing on.
We're going to be talking about that more because the Community Services Committee is an integral part of that discussion. But our goal is whatever comprehensive strategy we all come up with, and I use the phrase, and Chris, you've used the phrase, being loved to death. We do want to provide the right balance. Corbett's Glen is a jewel. We want people to experience it and enjoy it. We don't want to lose it. We don't want it to be overrun and damaged by erosion and litter. Significant problem in there with litter. So we're gonna look very closely at this list of recommendations from the Corbett's Glen Advisory Group, and I think we'll be taking some action. And frankly, I hope, our goal is certainly not to be punitive. Our goal is, as it often is, to try to take the minimum action necessary to get into compliance, to protect the park. So, for example, we've talked about things like dogs and what to do to enforce the law with respect to dogs being on leashes and the fact that people have to bag and remove dog waste. Our hope is that as we do this, as we educate, and we'll be doing education, as we put signage up, that we get better compliance. What we don't want to have to do is take more punitive measures, take stronger measures eliminating activities altogether. So we know it's a process. We know education is part of it. We know enforcement is part of it. So thank you, to all of the committee chairs. We've left finance out of it, Jason, but Chris, Jim, and somebody's got to pay for it. I know.
Something may come, yes.
It'll come to you eventually. Yeah. But this is a good example, Bill, of three of the four committees: Community Services, Public Safety, which I have, and Public Works on the part of Chris, that the left hand knows what the right hand's doing, and we're working in a collaborative effort to really address this and really enhance the park.
And we can take the time to drill down into these things.
And we wanted the input from all the different departments that are going to have responsibility, whether it's Matt Beeman, who's going to have to maintain
Superintendent of Highway.
fencing, if that's what...
Parks, I mean.
If we were to consider fencing, and particularly Mark's department with the police and the environmental officers that will have to go in and enforce as well. But we need, each of the committees has a different perspective, and with those three different viewpoints, we hope to have the most effective treatment and rules, I suppose, being implemented. But and since we're on the topic, it was also a large part of the Public Works Committee meeting just on the 6th. But fencing is considered. The greatest focus, I think, though, is the use of the water by dogs off lead and people swimming there, and people clambering in and out of the water, which has done a great amount of damage to the embankment there. So that what is an absolutely beautiful park is being degraded. And Mark's indicated just how wide the catchment area is for the people that use that park. That it's become a county-wide destination, even be a regional destination for folks that think of it as a swimming hole or a dog park, and it is neither of those things. It is a nature park.
There's a dog park less than a mile away.
Absolutely.
County dog park.
I love dogs, but we're going to, I think, implement a much more intense enforcement effort, but just as importantly is the education effort.
Yep.
And Matt, we're turning to Matt to ask if he could give us a fence plan, if he thinks fences will be at all effective.
And a signage plan.
And then a signage plan. The fences, I think we're trying to make that as least intrusive as possible, so we'll see how that gets implemented. But also, Dennis Adams has proposed as part of the advisory council that we have a Friends of Corbett's Glen group established. And so some of those signs will invite participation in that, and for people to really become engaged in that park. And hopefully it'll be more positive than an enforcement. And we're hopeful that a brief period of intense enforcement will spread the word and make it clear what the proper usage of that park is. And we'll be able to just all enjoy it together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me finish up by saying our next Public Safety Committee meeting will be next month, March, and that'll be Tuesday, March 13th at 8:30 in the morning. right back here in the finance, or I should say, the stage conference room, and like all of our committees, it's open to the public.
Thank you, Jim. Chris, you got a good start on your
Sure,
committee
yeah,
meeting?
we covered half
Carry
of
on.
it.
Well, we work together.
Absolutely. Well, a good part of that meeting was dedicated to Corbett's Glen, but also we had an extended discussion of the community choice aggregation proposal that Margie Pete presented to us earlier in the
Sue
evening.
Hughes Smith.
And Sue
Both
as well
were here.
was here. But the idea there is that the town would pass an ordinance that would authorize the formation of the community choice aggregation system, whereby you would be enlisted in an ESCO, an energy service
supply company. I'm
energy
sorry, energy supply company.
which is dedicated to renewable resources. And it would be controlled by an administrator, and everyone in the town would default to them as their source of supply. At the same time, however, anyone can opt out without charge, is the concept. But the idea is it'll start an inertia towards renewable energy within the town. What we had an extended discussion of was some of the very important administrative aspects of how we were going to implement it. Who would the administrator be? Is there someone who can competently administer the program? So I think we've taken our first step towards the reality of implementation and really drilling down to see if this is something that actually is feasible, because the players are available. And our hope and our expectation is that it will be. But people are going to ask exactly how are you going to accomplish this, and we've got to have those answers. So we're not, we don't want to get the horse too far, or the cart too far ahead of the horse, but as Robin said, but at the same time, we love the concept. The question is the reality of implementation.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bill?
I was just going to say, I can tell you that I've had further conversations with supervisors Seeley from Irondequoit and Smith from Pittsford about the CCA, and shared really some very parallel thoughts and concerns and ideas after reading the implementation plans of both of them. There's actually a new CCA that has just received PSC approval just within the last very short period of time. Not even, not contiguous, a couple of small jurisdictions in the Syracuse area and a couple of small jurisdictions, I don't remember what county they were in. But this is a process. It is consistent with the governor's vision for significant changes in the way energy is supplied, and a lot of those changes are with the goal, as we've all been talking about implementing his goal of 50% renewable energy. And if we're going to do it, those are CSAs with the drive towards sustainable renewable energy for residential customers is going to have to be a part of it. But the devil's in the details, as they say.
Exactly.
And in this case, the details, among other places, are in those implementation plans. And they're not light reading, but they're important reading.
So beyond those two issues, we then had a presentation by Rick DiStefano, excuse me, I'm sorry, from the town regarding our forestry plan amendments or recommendations for forestry plan amendments.
Good discussion.
Those were focused largely on what tree species were not to be planted as town trees. We've had difficulties where one species or one family of trees has been planted as a group at the same time. And our Tree City USA here in Brighton all of a sudden suffers huge losses all at once of huge Norway maples, as an example, that all reach that age when they can no longer hold themselves up and they start blowing down. So we're going to stagger the species and also the relative longevity of the different trees to make certain that we can maintain our canopy as long as possible. Also, I understand that there will also be recommendations regarding the interaction of our solar ordinance and town trees and how they impact each other as well. So we look forward to that. The next meeting will be Tuesday, March 6th at 10 o'clock a.m. And we typically meet in the downstairs meeting room, but I don't know if we'll still be doing tax assessment reviews down there, or perhaps we'll be in the stage conference room as well. So most likely in the stage conference room. The public is very welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris, when was your last meeting?
The last meeting was February 6th at 9 o'clock. Next one, March 6th.
New business now, reading and approval of claims. Jason.
Yes, earlier this evening, I reviewed claims totaling $5,549,426.16. Notable claims include to the Brighton Fire District, the balance of the 2018 tax levy, and that was for $4,778,018.69. We're the collection agent for the taxes for the Brighton Fire District. So we passed those through. Also to Van Bortle Ford, and the amount of $40,374.30 for the purchase of a 2017 Ford F-350. And also to the Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, in the amount of $252,000, representing the 2018 ambulance services contract, less the fuel retainage. The claims appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. We have two items now coming up that relate to the Whole Foods Plaza that I believe Councilmember Wilt is going to recuse from. Ken, I'm just going to ask you, we do have a later matter on the agenda relating to amending the agreement with Stantec for services relating to their environmental review of the plaza, of the whole proposed Whole Foods Plaza project. I presume that Councilmember Wilt should recuse herself from that, so I'm going to suggest that we move that item up on our consideration so that we handle all three of those consecutively. All right.
What about the Stantec? There's also a Stantec one regarding
Yeah, that's what I,
services?
right, that, we're going to.
There will be a total of
we're gonna
three
move
Whole
Three
Foods
Whole
matters.
Foods Plaza-related matters.
Stantec's on halfway down page 3.
Gotcha, okay.
We'll come get you.
Thank you.
Okay, the first item relates to amending the public notice and really changing our next town board meeting, which is scheduled for February 28th. I've had a couple people inquire. We had a lot of people at the last seeker hearing on the proposed Whole Foods project, so much that we did have overflow downstairs. We have identified Council Rock School, located at 600 Grosvenor Road. Their auditorium is quite a bit bigger than this one, and we will have the capability. We've worked with Steve Del Monte, who does our broadcast, to broadcast that meeting from the school district's location, so that will work out. So we are recommending that we change that meeting and take action to amend the legal notice accordingly. So can I have a motion, please, Jim, on that matter?
So moved, and that would be the approval to amend the notice regarding the public hearing and the town board meeting to be now located at Brighton, or the Council Rock School at 600 Grosvenor Road. And I move on that resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second. Thank you, Jason. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. The next matter is somewhat more substantive in a sense. we are proposing to receive and file a second letter of intent from the developer of the proposed Whole Foods project, actually from council, for the developer, which puts into writing certain proposed changes to the project, and particularly to amenities, and also to consent to extend the date by which the town has to take action on a seeker finding statement. Under seeker, we have 30 days after the final environmental impact statement is filed, and we anticipate that it will take longer than that to complete finding statements, so they are consenting to an additional 30-day extension. Can I have a motion to receive and file that second?
Bill, I move that we adopt the resolution before us to receive and file a second letter of intent dated February 1, 2018 concerning that Whole Foods Plaza incentive zoning project, and consent to extend the date for the seeker finding statement.
Thank you.
Second.
I would note that both of those documents are part of the record of tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
Ken, was there anything you want to do?
I just wanted to add, so that neither the board nor the public is wondering, the amendments that are mentioned in the amended letter of intent are completely consistent with the project as described in the final environmental impact statement that you have already received and filed, so that there are no changes to the project since that date.
Yeah.
Those changes were made earlier in the process and were described, I believe, by Passero when they made their presentation at the last meeting. The reason I wanted to point that out is not only to make sure that you knew that and the public knew that, but also just to point out that really this is, although the supervisor called it maybe more substantive than the first thing, really, truly just a procedural step, which is to make sure that the incentive zoning application is consistent with the project as described in the FEIS that this board has now accepted and filed. So that's what we're doing with the first half of it. The second half of it is this letter that the supervisor described, extending to, I believe the date now will be March 15th, to have findings issued by this board.
That's correct.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second on that. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner. Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. And then I am going to move up. It is the sixth matter from the bottom of the page on page 3, a matter authorizing an amendment to the agreement with Stantec. Stantec is our consultant on the proposed Whole Foods Plaza. However, the costs of Stantec's services are reimbursed to us by the applicant of the proposed project, as is the norm with these projects. And based on the amount of work and the additional changes in part reflected in this latest letter of intent, we and Stantec both acknowledge that the costs are going to go up. We will amend the agreement with Stantec for the additional money, and that money will be reimbursed by the applicant. So can I have a motion to authorize that amendment in the form
So moved.
prepared? Thank you, Chris.
Second.
Okay.
Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, David, please call the roll.
Council members Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye, and again, I just want to let the public know, this public hearing, which technically is a public hearing on the incentive zoning application as it is now amended, will be on February 28th, 2 weeks from tonight, at Council Rock School, 7 p.m. The public is invited. The public will have an opportunity to speak. No decisions have been made on the project. We continue to listen. When I say no decisions, we've filed a final environmental impact statement. But as we said at that meeting, and as I'll say again tonight, that is not the end of the environmental review process. And findings statement still has to be done before the environmental impact statement is completed. That will not happen until after this next public hearing. So, okay, we will move on now, Chris, to the sanitary sewer
Next
easement.
item is to authorize the supervisor to execute, I believe, a sanitary sewer easement agreement relating to extension 102 to the Brighton Consolidated Sanitary Sewer District. Did we not already pass this as part of, at the end of?
So the public hearing was to extend the sewer, but in connection with the sewer extension, there is an easement that needs to be signed. So this is just a separate action to authorize the supervisor to execute that easement agreement.
Thanks for the explanation, Ken. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Discussion? Hearing none, Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. The next matter is accepting a grant from the JCAP program, the Justice Court Assistance Program, for our Brighton Town Court. Jason?
Yes, with respect to seeking approval to accept a $4,105.94 in funding from the Justice Court Assistance Program to be used by the Brighton Town Court, I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And this money will be used for filing cabinets and tables, furniture. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? David, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Next matter, we have a proposal to set a public hearing for proposed extension 103 to the Brighton Consolidated Sanitary Sewer District. This is in relation to 1925 South Clinton Avenue. We have had, I believe, this discussion, but I just want to confirm with Ken because the underlying project is one that I recused myself on, but the project itself has now been approved. Should I recuse myself from the formation of this sanitary sewer district? Seems to me that I should, because it does relate to the development of the property.
If the reasons for the recusal that originally took you out of the decision-making tree for the project still exist, then yes, but if not, then no.
I think the answer is a little bit gray on that.
It is too.
But I think better for me to recuse than not to.
Right.
So I'm just going to step aside very briefly, and Jim,
We'll let you know.
handle this one.
It's what you what happens when you have, members of your community who are actually making these decisions, and you're involved in the community and have contacts, so I get it.
Okay. All right. In the matter before us, I move that we set March 14th as a public hearing date for extension number 103 to the Brighton Consolidated Sanitary Sewer District in connection with the 1925 South Clinton Avenue Development Project. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
So you want to have any discussion on this? Any questions?
I think it's pretty straightforward.
We've already considered this
Let's go ahead
project
and-
at length.
Call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
All right.
Don't think we have any more up and down in the rest of this rather lengthy agenda tonight. Robin, if you would handle the next matter, please.
Certainly. On the matter to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Eco Green Park to provide secure town departmental document shredding services, I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion? This was designed to consolidate. We had a couple of different suppliers, and we were able to get better terms and have only one supplier handling, one vendor doing secure shredding for us, so.
Will this have any effect on the shredding event? We
No.
had a different vendor.
It shouldn't. If it does, it'll only help. But as of right now, I don't believe we expect that it would change anything.
I do have one question.
Sure.
Obviously, we do the community shredding.
Right.
And is there any way that that could be consolidated
It's
with the
possible.
town shredding?
The town shredding is in secure bins that are locked and have, slots that materials are put in. It wouldn't support the same kind of volume.
Mhm.
It may, however, be relevant as we're looking at vendors.
Okay.
So it shouldn't have any direct impact, but if that particular vendor likes the idea of working with us, maybe it will.
Understood, okay.
But it is sort of a different,
Right, it seems.
just
Yeah.
approach. The
Okay.
volumes are much different.
All right, in my ignorance. I
No,
just
it's a good
wanted to-
question. It's yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePoncio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye,
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye, and then I'll ask Robin to do the next one as well.
certainly. In the matter for the approval to accept a donation from the Board of Trustees of the Jack G. Lubell Foundation, Inc., in the amount of $1,500 to support the town's senior citizen recreational programming. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Obviously, we're very grateful for the support. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePoncio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye,
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute agreements with the New York State Municipal Workers' Compensation Alliance, Comp Alliance, for employee workers' compensation benefits for 2018, and Right Risk Management as third-party administrator of any pre-existing claims. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
second.
I will note that this arrangement is affiliated with the New York State Association of Towns. I am a member of the board of the New York Association of Towns. However, I receive no compensation from them, nor do I play any role in the setup of this Workers' Compensation Alliance. So I do not have any interest that would be prohibited and would require me to recuse, but I did want to, just for the record, so that would be there. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePoncio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer?
Aye. Next, Robin, if you would take this next one.
Certainly. On the matter to set a public hearing date for March 14th, 2018, to consider proposed source of income local law, I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is a proposed law that we have discussed on several occasions in committees. The goal here is to preclude discrimination in housing accommodations in sale, rental, or leasing based on the source of income. And the specific concern really is the use of Section 8 housing credits. It has certainly come to our attention that there are landlords that don't currently lease to Section 8, to prospective tenants that are getting Section 8 credits. I've talked with other landlords in town that do, who have not had any issues with them. They may have had some issues with the complexity of some of the paperwork requirements of Section 8, and that's another issue. But as we look at the role of the town of Brighton in addressing, we've talked about diversity tonight and the importance of addressing the availability of affordable housing options throughout the entire community. This is one way that suburban communities like Brighton can be proactive in that. I was surprised to learn when this whole process started of looking at this last year. I always thought New York State prohibited discrimination based on the fact that you're a Section 8 recipient. It's a governmental-based program. It seemed sensible to me that they would, and yet landlords can discriminate. And there are some exceptions here, but I think this proposal is consistent. The thought behind it is consistent with many of our other anti-discrimination measures. It is consistent with our goal of promoting diversity and inclusion in the town of Brighton, and it is consistent with the goals of the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative. So for all of those reasons, Robin has made the motion. Do we have a second?
Jim.
Jim, thank you.
And Bill, we've discussed this at length in previous community service meetings as well, and this will be our opportunity to hear what the public has to say about it.
I've spoken with, there are 2 towns in western New York that have similar legislation. I've spoken with the supervisors of both of those towns. They've not had problems after similar legislation. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
Panzio.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. And Robin, why don't you do the next one too?
Sure. The next matter is to set a public hearing date of March 14th, 2018 for community choice aggregation local law. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Again, we've spoken about this tonight and on several prior occasions, and we did in fact hold a public hearing on a previous and quite different version of a CCA local law. This is an area that has been evolving fairly quickly, but for all the reasons we discussed earlier, I think it's important that we get this out on the table. There's a lot of detail here. There are many points in terms of how the law works, but how the program would be administered. And those are some questions we're going to have to spend some time digging into between now and the public hearing date, but no time like the present. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion on that? Hearing none. David, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
Panzio.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Jim?
Yes, the next item is to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Genesee Valley Ford for the provision of police vehicle setup services. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Mark, anything you would like to?
Nope. They've done work on one car, and they were the lowest responsive bidder.
It's what I like to hear. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
Panzio.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Will.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Robin?
Certainly. The next matter is to authorize the supervisor to execute an affidavit concerning 2 state and municipal (SAM) grants with the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, DASNY. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And actually, although the supporting material correctly describes it, I'm actually I've already been authorized to do an affidavit on one of these two $500,000 grants, and this is to do an affidavit on the second one of them. There are, in fact, two SAM grants, but this just covers the one. But the agenda does talk about two.
The resolution, though, I think just refers to the one.
Just refers to the one, as to the correspondence. Yep, 9461. So we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mailey.
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with the University of Rochester for the Strong Employee Assistance Program for 2018. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
We have worked with the Strong EAP for a number of years, and we found it to be a good program at good cost. We have a motion and a second. If there's nothing further, David, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mailey.
Aye. Chris?
Next item is to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with the Monroe County Water Authority to provide new fire hydrant installation and related services in connection with the town's landfill service renovation project. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
And the cost will be, the town will pay the county approximately $7,531. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
DePonzio.
Aye.
Warner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mailey.
Aye. We've already taken action on the next matter on the agenda, so I will move to the various 2017 budget transfers. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks approval of various 2017 budget transfers and appropriations to reflect actual budgetary activity as occurred in 2017. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
We do this at the close of each year, and Suzanne, I will let you highlight as much or as little of these as you would like
I've
to.
got 4 pages. So
Yes, you do. And this is always a big project, and I know this is one, you know, that it's hard to pull together until the last minute, and I appreciate all the work that you do to.
Getting in one more claim, one more, invoice from the prior year to try to get all those expenditures in the proper fiscal year. So a lot of this is housekeeping. We do this also periodically throughout the year. Our budgets are pretty tight, so there's not a lot of room, flexibility, but it's more, a lot of this has to do with things like utilities. Some electric costs went up last year. It affected most every one of the street lighting districts, so appropriating some fund balances there. And one of the other, I guess, bigger ones that I'll say, it looks big, but really isn't. In the background, it has to do with wages in our highway and sewer department. We did make a change at the end of last year, a little bit accounting-wise, on how we administer the charges when the highway does work for the sewer and vice versa. We used to do some interfund charges. Now we charge directly to those departments. So the budget was already in place for 2018 when we made that change. So hopefully going forward we won't have so many, but that also is really hard to predict,
Sure.
depending on whether you're going to spend more time on roads or leaves or snow or.
All of the above.
But still staying within budgeted wages.
Right. Does anybody, having looked at the 4 pages, and I know, again, you got these fairly late, just of necessity, trying to process as many of these things as Suzanne can. Does anybody have any questions concerning any of the specific items listed in her spreadsheet? Hearing none, we do have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions or comments? Then David, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePonzio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Why don't you do the next one as well, Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Paragon Compliance LLC to provide reporting services relating to Employer Affordable Care Act compliance. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Last year, when we entered into, it might have been 2 years ago. Well, I think it was last year. Or was it?
Well, it's been about 3 years, but last year was the first year we were paying.
Right, that's right, that's right. And that contract was with HB Services, right? Solutions, which is an affiliate of the Harris Beach Law Firm. Paragon Compliance is a successor to HB Solutions. I think it's going to involve basically the same people doing this compliance review on an ongoing basis to make sure that we are in compliance with the Affordable Care Act. This is through the so-called FLMHIT, the Finger Lakes Municipal Health Consortium, that we are a part of along with a number of other communities. We have a motion from Jason, seconded by Chris. Any further discussion? Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePonzio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Robin?
The next matter is regarding approval to accept a donation from the Garden Lovers Club of Brighton in the amount of $750 to be used to plant new trees at Buckland Park. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
I know Matt Beeman was very excited about this because it means, I believe he said he could get about 10 trees, I believe, that would actually have root balls on them. So they're not just little seedlings put into the ground. These are trees that have a greater chance of survival.
Yep.
Yep.
So
In
thank
a
you,
deer,
Garden
in a
Lovers
deer-rich environment.
Yes, exactly.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePonzio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And Robin, go ahead with a couple of 4th of July resolutions.
The next item is to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Young Explosives Corp. To provide fireworks display services at the July 4th, 2018 celebration. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
We love their fireworks display
Love
every
their
year. They do a
fireworks.
great job. We have a motion and a second. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePonzio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye, and by the way, at the same price as they have charged us in the past. And now the Sky Coasters contract.
Yeah. The next item is to authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with the Sky Coasters to provide entertainment services at the July 4th, 2018 celebration. I move that we adopt that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This contract has gone up a little bit, but the Sky Coasters had kept their price stable for quite a number of years. And they're about as popular as the fireworks are, too. So it makes for a great
It's
show.
only a $300 increase.
$300, yep. So we have a motion and a second. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePonzio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris?
Next item is for approval for the supervisor to execute an agreement with Bartlett Tree Experts to provide arborist consulting services for 2018 with a renewal option for up to 3 additional one-year terms. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel?
Aye.
DePonzio?
Aye.
Warner?
Aye.
Wilt?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, I really don't, I don't have anything. Matters of the attorney to the town.
Nothing for me.
Matters of the town clerk.
Nope.
Matters of board members.
I have a couple items.
Sure.
Sorry, I know we're going really long tonight, but I did just want to highlight some of our events through the Brighton Rec Department. We still have room in many of the February break program offerings scheduled at the Brighton Recreation. Check out the Recreation website at www.townofbrighton.org/rec under the school break activities to see all that we have to offer, including creative cupcakes and recess camp. Registration is required and spaces are filled on a first-come, first-served basis, so please do get your registrations in. We have ongoing registration for our winter and spring programs, and as you may not know, we do accept residents from all over the area. You do not have to be a resident of Brighton in order to participate in our wonderful recreation programs. Full program information can be found online and in our winter spring program brochures. They're available also at the Brighton Town Hall, Brighton Memorial Library, and at the BCSD buildings. Classes are starting and registration is ongoing. Spaces and programs are filled on a first-come, first-served basis. Register early to ensure that your program of choice does not get canceled or filled. Registration can be done online, by mail, or in person at the Rec Department. Please call the Recreation Department with any questions you have, or if you're having problems registering. The number is 784-5260, extension 0. Also, I want to remind everybody to join us for the Winter Farmers Market on Sundays from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Brookside Recreation Center. That's at 220 Idlewood Road. Each week we have vendors, entertainment, food, and tons of fun. So please do join us on Sundays.
And the occasional town board member selfie.
Always. Upcoming programs of interest include ukulele, tennis, foam dart league, rock climbing, horseback riding, and many more. Also, don't forget to click like on the Recreation Department Facebook page. You might see a selfie or two. To stay up to date with all the upcoming events and programs in the community. That's facebook.com/Brighton Recreation. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Question, have we mentioned at all about registration for Brighton soccer and Brighton baseball?
We haven't discussed that.
They announced it,
Baseball is open right now.
Yeah,
Right.
I was going to say, baseball is open. I'm not sure about soccer. They do at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board meetings update the committee on that.
I know they talked about baseball registration, Jim, but I don't believe soccer is open. They used to do it earlier in the year.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I did see signs for baseball. I also saw a sign for lacrosse.
I don't know.
Good question.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Hearing nothing more from board members, we have no further business. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Dave, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Vogel.
Aye.
Ponzio.
Aye.
Werner.
Aye.
Wilt.
Aye.
Supervisor Mailer.
Aye. Thanks, everybody. Our next town board meeting, again, just a reminder, it is the usual time, 2 weeks from tonight, February 28th at 7 p.m., but it will be at Council Rock School, 600 Grosvenor Road. Look forward to seeing you then. By the way, that meeting, as I mentioned earlier, will be televised. We will be holding the incentive zoning hearing on the proposed Whole Foods project, but we will also have a regular town board meeting and agenda that night. Thanks, everybody, again. Have a great evening. Happy Valentine's Day.